There are moments in your life when you sit alone and a question quietly rises in your chest. Does Allah love me? Not the version of you that prays perfectly, not the version of you that never sins, not the version of you that looks strong in front of people, but you, the one who struggles, the one who fails, the one who cries in silence. You wonder if the doors that closed were punishment, if the tears were rejection, if the silence was distance. But what if the very things you fear are proof of something deeper? What if the signs of Allah's love for you are not loud miracles but subtle patterns woven into your ordinary life? Stay with me, because by the end of this, you may realize that the love you have been searching for has been surrounding you all along. The first clear sign that Allah loves you is that He pulls you back every time you drift too far. You may sin, you may become distracted, you may go through phases where your heart feels distant and your prayers feel heavy, but somehow you always come back. Something pulls you back. A reminder, a video, a hardship, a late night thought that refuses to let you sleep. That pull is not random. Many people drift and never feel the urge to return. Their hearts become comfortable in distance, but you feel discomfort when you are far. You feel restless when you neglect what you know is right. That restlessness is mercy. That inner disturbance is not condemnation, it is invitation. If Allah did not love you, He would leave you where you chose to stand. The fact that you are repeatedly guided back is not coincidence, it is care. The second sign is that your sins hurt you more than they satisfy you. There was a time when mistakes felt light, when wrong choices felt exciting. But now, even when you sleep, your heart does not celebrate. It aches, you feel the weight of it. You regret quickly, you want to fix it, you want to be better. That pain is not weakness, it is life in your heart. A dead heart does not feel guilt. A distant soul does not feel remorse. The discomfort you feel after wrongdoing is a sign that your heart is still protected. You may think you are a hypocrite because you fall and rise again. But the fact that you rise again proves you are not lost. The struggle itself is evidence of love. The third sign that Allah loves you is that He tests you in ways that shape you, not destroy you. Look back at your life. The heartbreak that made you stronger. The financial struggle that forced you to depend on Him. The betrayal that taught you discernment. The failure that redirected your path. In the moment, it felt unbearable. You questioned everything. You asked why. But now you see growth. You see maturity. You see wisdom that could not have been purchased without pain. Love does not always look like comfort. Sometimes it looks like refinement. Gold is purified through fire, not through ease. If your hardships are shaping your character instead of shattering your soul, that is not abandonment. That is intentional development. The fourth sign is that you are protected from certain things you desperately wanted. You prayed for it. You cried for it. You planned your life around it, and it did not happen. At the time, it felt like rejection. You felt unseen. But later, you discovered what would have come with it. The hidden harm, the distraction, the people who would have pulled you away from who you are meant to become. Sometimes Allah's love is in what He withholds. You may think love means giving you everything you ask for, but real love gives you what is good for you, even if it hurts in the moment. If you look back and see doors that closed only to save you from greater pain, understand that you were not ignored, you were protected. The fifth sign that Allah loves you is that He places in your heart a desire to improve, even when no one is watching. You want to be better, not for applause, not for validation, not for reputation, but because something inside you wants growth. You feel inspired to change habits, to control your anger, to purify your intentions, to become more disciplined. This internal motivation is not self-generated power alone. Many people live without ever questioning themselves. They justify every flaw. They blame everyone else. But you reflect, you analyze your actions, you want to refine yourself. That desire for self-improvement is a quiet sign of divine attention on your life. The sixth sign is that your heart softens instead of hardens after pain. Pain can make people bitter. It can turn them cold. It can make them cynical and harsh. But somehow, despite what you have been through, you still care. You still feel empathy. You still want good for others. You still tear up at the suffering of people you do not know. That softness is rare. It is easy to become hardened in this world. If your heart remains tender despite hardship, it means it is being guarded. Love is not always about removing pain. Sometimes it is about preserving your humanity through it. The seventh sign that Allah loves you is that He makes you think about Him often. You may not be perfect in worship. You may struggle with consistency, but He is on your mind. In moments of stress, you call upon Him. In moments of joy, you remember Him. In moments of fear, you turn to Him instinctively. That connection, even if imperfect, is not something everyone has. There are people who go through life without ever reflecting on their Creator, but you cannot escape the awareness. Even when you try to distract yourself, something brings you back to reflection. That constant remembrance, even in weakness, is not self-created, it is facilitated, and here is something deeper. If you are watching this, if you are listening to this, if you care enough to wonder whether Allah loves you, that concern itself is a sign. Indifference is dangerous. A heart that does not care is far more frightening than a heart that fears distance. The anxiety you feel about your relationship with Him is not proof of rejection. It is proof that the relationship matters to you. And if it matters to you, it means it has been nurtured. But do not misunderstand this message. Love does not mean a life free of struggle. It does not mean you will never feel lost. It does not mean you will not experience silence. Sometimes the silence is a space for you to grow. Sometimes the delay is building your capacity. Sometimes the hardship is elevating you in ways you cannot measure yet. The problem is that you often define love by comfort, but divine love is defined by purpose. There will be days when you feel unworthy, days when your past feels heavier than your hope, days when you replay your mistakes and wonder how you could ever be accepted. In those moments, remember this: the door is still open. You are still breathing. You are still being given time. You are still being given chances. That continuity is not random. It is sustained care. You do not have to be flawless to be loved. You have to be willing to return, willing to reflect, willing to rise again. The fact that you keep trying even when you feel weak is not small. It is significant. Your effort, however imperfect, is seen. And maybe the greatest sign of all is this: you are still on the journey. You have not given up completely. You are still searching, still learning, still hoping, still asking. A soul that is abandoned does not search. A heart that is unloved does not long for closeness. The longing itself is evidence. So before you assume your hardships are proof of distance, look closer. Before you interpret your struggles as rejection, reflect deeper. You might discover that what you thought was neglect was actually guidance. What you thought was punishment was purification. What you thought was silence was preparation. And perhaps right now, in this very moment, as you listen and reflect, that quiet feeling in your chest is not fear. It is reassurance. And if you are still here, still listening, still reflecting, then this is where everything becomes even more personal. Because recognizing the signs is only the beginning. The deeper question is this: what do you do when you realize that Allah's love has been present in your life all along? How do you respond to a love that has been protecting you, guiding you, refining you, even when you misunderstood it? There is another sign, one that is often overlooked because it hides inside your struggles. It is the way your priorities slowly begin to change. Things that once obsessed you begin to lose their shine. The approval of people becomes less intoxicating. The chase for constant validation becomes exhausting. You begin to value peace over popularity, sincerity over attention, depth over display. This shift does not happen overnight. It happens quietly, gradually, almost invisibly. And one day you wake up and realize you are not who you used to be. That transformation is not self-manufactured alone. But it is cultivation. When Allah loves you, He detaches your heart from what would ultimately harm it. You may also notice that your circle becomes smaller but more meaningful. Certain relationships fade. Some people misunderstand you. Others drift away because you are no longer aligned with the same distractions. At first, it feels lonely. You question why connections are breaking. But over time, you begin to see that space was necessary. Not every loss is a tragedy. Some losses are protection. When Allah loves you, He removes what competes for your heart's ultimate loyalty. He clears space for clarity. He filters your environment so that your growth is not constantly sabotaged. Another powerful sign is that you are given moments of deep clarity in the middle of confusion. You may not have all the answers about your future. You may still be navigating uncertainty, but in critical moments, you feel guided. You make a decision that later proves to be exactly what you needed. You avoid a path that later reveals hidden danger. You feel an inner conviction that steers you away from something harmful. That subtle guidance is not coincidence, it is direction. Love does not mean you are given a map of your entire life, it means you are given enough light for the next step. And then there is the way your dua changes. It becomes less about demanding outcomes and more about asking for what is best. Less about controlling every detail and more about trusting the wisdom behind what unfolds. You begin to say, "Give me what is good for me," instead of insisting on what you think you need. That shift is maturity. That surrender is strength. When Allah loves you, He elevates the quality of your dependence. You move from desperation for specific results to reliance on divine wisdom. You will also find that your pain begins to carry meaning. You stop asking only, "Why is this happening to me?" And you start asking, "What is this shaping within me?" That question changes everything. Instead of seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances, you begin to see yourself as a student in a carefully designed curriculum. Every hardship becomes a lesson. Every delay becomes training. Every disappointment becomes redirection. Love is not random chaos. It is purposeful design. There is another sign that is subtle but profound. You begin to fear losing your connection more than losing worldly things. You might lose money and feel disappointed. You might lose opportunities and feel frustrated. But the idea of losing your spiritual anchor unsettles you far more. That fear is not insecurity, it is awareness. When Allah loves you, He places in your heart a protective jealousy over your own faith. You guard it, you worry about it, you nurture it, and that concern keeps you alive internally. You may still struggle, you may still feel weak, you may still have days when your motivation collapses. But even in those days, you do not completely detach. Something inside refuses to fully disconnect. That refusal is not stubbornness, it is preservation. You are being held even when you feel like you are barely holding on. And perhaps the most powerful realization is this: love from Allah is not proven by a life without storms, but by a heart that survives them. You are still standing. You are still breathing. You are still seeking. But despite your mistakes, despite your doubts, despite your fears, you are still trying. That persistence is not small. It is evidence of being sustained. Now reflect on your life honestly. Think about the times you were saved from what you begged for. Think about the mistakes that taught you humility. Think about the pain that softened you instead of breaking you. Think about the reminders that came exactly when you needed them. Think about the internal discomfort that pushes you to improve. These are not random experiences scattered without meaning. They are threads. And when you step back, you see they form a pattern. The pattern is care. You may not have everything you want. You may not be where you hoped to be by now, but you are not abandoned. You are being shaped. You are being refined. You are being guided in ways that are too subtle for the impatient eye to immediately recognize. So the next time doubt whispers to you, the next time you question your worth, the next time you feel distant, pause. Instead of asking, why am I going through this? Ask, what is this teaching me? Instead of saying, I must not be loved, ask, where is the hidden mercy in this? Shift the lens and you will begin to see signs everywhere. And here is the truth that should settle deeply into your heart. If Allah did not love you, you would not care about being close. You would not feel guilt after mistakes. You would not long for improvement. You would not reflect on your purpose. You would not be searching for reassurance. The very fact that you are concerned about His love is itself a doorway to it. Do not measure divine love by how easy your life is. Measure it by how guided your heart feels. Measure it by how often you are redirected before destruction. Measure it by how many times you were given another chance. Measure it by the softness that still exists in you despite everything. You are not perfect, you are not finished, you are not without flaws, but you are not forgotten. And if you continue to return, continue to reflect, continue to strive, even imperfectly, you will begin to see that the love you doubted was never absent. It was always there.